All right, so now we can actually get into the rest of the dynamics and fracturing workflow. So I'm going to put a little net box around here just for fun, and we'll call it something like read, and we'll make it cool like that. So that'll be that up there. So now this next part will be actually breaking down the helicopter into different categories of similar types. So all the windows in one thing, maybe the fuselage because it bends in another thing, the rotors in another thing because they should be brittle, but not as brittle as the glass, which will be in another one. So different categories and such. And we're going to use these primitive wranglers to do that. You'd think your main instinct might be to go to make groups, but I think you'll see why I prefer this way. So let's start with the windows, for example. We're going to say, I'll make it another cool little light color like that. So windows. We're going to make another one of these nodes every time for each category that we do. So we're going to set up this prototype one now. Let's start by going to Edit Parameter Interface, make a string, and we'll call it name. All this guy is going to do is use our old friend, the $OS, which means object string. And if you middle click, it just resolves to the name of the node. That's the only reason why we want to do this, because I want to use the name of the node in Vex. Vex doesn't have any way of accessing the name of the node otherwise, but it can access the parameters. So again, I'm middle clicking to resolve this. We don't have to do that. But now I can do ch channel name to get that. So let's do that straight off. We'll say whatever we end up categorizing with this node, it's gonna get the name of the node. Okay, so far everything is gonna be cat name windows. Okay, well that's not exactly what we want. What we want is to actually select certain things to be in this category. So you see it comes back into selection mode with this thing on, and turn it on if it's not already on, and make sure again that it's in Alembic path if it's not already in Alembic paths. So let's actually just go through, and I'm going to shift click each of the windows in turn. And once I'm done, we'll press enter, and that will populate this group thing here. It's going to be a lot of oops, and if you make a mistake, control click to unselect, shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click. And press enter. You see it populated. It said at path, meaning the path attribute, if it is equal to, and these are the things that we clicked on because we were in that selection mode. And now you'll see when we go in here, only certain ones of these are actually executing this code. It's whatever's in here. Now, I happen to know that all of the glass A's are the windows because I modeled it. Or you could look at it, or you could ask your modeler, or whatever. But again, this is a nice way, it's a nice reason to name things like this. So instead of having this long list, we can actually just have, hey, how about at path equals anything with glass A? And you'll see it's essentially the same. Now it's kind of hard to tell that it's the same right now. And there's one of those sirens that people keep telling me they hear on these lessons. Sorry, I live in downtown San Francisco and I can't help that. So at any rate, let's see if there's an easier way to see that we've actually gotten what we wanted here. So let's say something like that. Aha. So now everything in this group, essentially, now we didn't actually literally make a group. We're just saying this code should only execute on these things, which again, anything with glass A in the path, which is all the windows. We're assigning the color red to it. And whenever we assign an attribute to some things and not others, the other things are being initialized. They're just being initialized to default values. So in this case, everything that fell under this group was deemed to be red, 100. Everything else was just given white. These things were given the name window, or windows rather, and otherwise it was given nothing. So that's that. Now what I'm going to want to do though is I'm going to want to keep duplicating this node, and I want to be real lazy about it. So I'm not going to even I don't want to actually have to choose a new color myself every time. Who can be bothered with that? So let's instead make a random number based off of the name of the node. We can do that using a hash. And I'm not going to explain exactly what a hash is, but essentially it's going to make a string, any kind of text, which in this case will be Windows or whatever the name of the node is, and it's going to turn that into a numerical representation. And in fact, a random numerical interpretation with this vex function called random s hash. So again, for your purposes, all it means is give me a random number based on some string. So we're going to say, give me a random number based on the category name, which is the name of the node. So now that int, that hash is a random number. And now we can set our color here based on that. So I'm going to say, let's take it even more random. We'll say, give me a random number based on that. Give me a different random number. Let's just add some whatever to this, just so it's different. And then same thing here, just add something to it. Doesn't really matter. And that's that. And now, oopsies, I got greedy. Okay, we need to use actual set here. Whenever you are setting a vector with that's not a literal, when we're not saying like 1, 0, 0, whenever we're setting things based off of variables, we have to use set instead. It's just a vex fun thing. So you can see, boom, bam, turn on, off. It's always purple because this is always called Windows. Once I change the name of this, you'll see it changes the color. You'll also notice that nothing happened when they changed it. It's just a kind of an idiosyncrasy of the way this works. You'll have to like turn it off, turn it on again to get it to, essentially to force it to recompile that code. But cool. So now I have a nice little easy framework to get to do our categories, where all I have to do is copy this node, name it something else, select things, and it'll automatically set the attribute for us, set the color for us. In fact, there's one more thing we might want to do is we're gonna set things up that are gonna be fractured, because that's the whole point right now. So let's make another thing. We'll call it cat fracture density, and we'll say it's 1.0 by default. This is going to be how many points get scattered into, well, I guess I should say it's a float. There. So that means it's gonna scatter 1 times as many points as we say later. And maybe we want the glass to have more density than other areas, so we might set this to 2 or something, but we'll keep it at 1 for now. Wonderful. So there you go. So now I can go through and say copy paste. And I could say, let's do like the rotors now. So we'll call these like top rotors. So I don't need this anymore. I'm going to say, let's select, and we're in, this selection mode. I'm just going to click these this time. Shift clicking these 4. And there you go. We got a random color because of the name of the thing. It got its names populated. So here's cat name again. I'm not organized by that. We have got 4 top rotors, and these are all the different Windows pieces. Cooler than using groups, right? It's essentially a group. It's just one attribute that's storing all the different names. If we ever need to change our selection, I can always just go back to this, and it will reselect it for us. I can control click this, press return, and now only these 3 are in here. I can click this again, shift click, and maybe add this in. Press enter. Now this is in it. So it's a really convenient way, I controlled click that, to do this. Once again, I could probably just do like top rotor star star or something, but I'm not going to get fancy this time. I'm just going to keep it like that. So let's go through the rest of them. So we got top rotors. What else? Because we're going to want this to break. We're going to want the glass to break. We're going to want the body itself in general. So we'll say like the body will be this thing. We'll say this thing, this thing, this thing maybe. these engine-y things, I think. We'll grab these things that come down the side here. Something like that. So this will be what I'm predicting is, again, we're trying to categorize things that are all going to behave in a similar manner. So I'm saying this is all the main structural metal of the fuselage, really. I could have called it the fuselage. And I know later on I'm going to want this all to dent. I want this to be fractured, but really it's not going to be in pieces. This shouldn't shatter like ceramic. This is metal. So I'm thinking to myself now, I'm going to want this to dent later. So there we go. So apparently it got a very similar color to the rotors here. So just for the sake of argument, I'm going to kind of force it to do a different color just by messing with that a little bit. There. So you see what I did? I just changed the green, because this is RGB. I just had it basically return a different random number by playing with this number here. We'll make it give a different random number. Cool. So I'm gonna save that. What else we want to do? Let's do maybe that little area on the top that almost maybe I'll change my mind later, but I'm gonna say this area on the top here I want to be like a completely different thing. I don't know. And then let's see what else we got. We want to do the tail. See how easy and fun this is? This is the artistic aspect of this, but this is also why it's so important to have a workflow, to have a robust workflow to do this kind of stuff, because it makes it easy. And we'll be able to set the fracture density independently for each of these categories and so on and so forth. Now I noticed that I missed this little nubbin back here. I'm going to go back to body. I'm going to say, hey, shift click this, enter. Easy, done. Easy to work with. That's important. Can't stress that enough. Copy paste this one again. We'll do, I'm going to call this one rotor assembly. That'll be this bunch of doodads up here. So I'm going to just select all this garbage here. In fact, I'm just going to go, well, yeah, that's fine. I'll select all this garbage, and then I'll control, like, box out all the stuff that I don't want. So I just want, not you. I just want this thing on the top. I don't want any of this stuff on the side. And there we go. So that should be good. Press enter, and we have him. And let's do the rear rotors. That should probably be good. One of the reasons why I want to select these things is I want to make them rotate later, because obviously coming in as the asset, I'll call it, how about I call this? I'll call it rotors. What did I call the other one before? Top rotors? Okay, I'll call this one rear rotors. I'm going to want to make them spin. So that's, in addition to even being like a material type or a physical property, I just know that I want to do something with these pieces later. So I'm going to grab this. Looks like I missed a piece or two there. Oh, make sure that we click this first. Then we select them. I don't know why it's not selecting that one. And there we go. Press enter. Wonderful. So now we have rear rotors as well. So that should be pretty good for now. I think this is a pretty good list. Everything else, all the stuff that we didn't select, will basically just be treated as solid objects, until we change our minds later maybe. But maybe, these things some of these things are small, like this and this and this. They can just fly off and fly through the air, even these doors. Maybe we'll make the doors dent later. For some reason in my mind, I feel like these big swaths would dent, but maybe the doors are stronger or something. I don't know. Again, that comes down to the artistic direction. I would point out before we finish here is we are selecting by alembic paths, of course, but we can select by any attribute. Remember those category names we just did? Here they are. And we can see them by color, their own color here, or their new colors. But now you can see, look, I can select by the categories we just set up. There they are. Body, rear rotors, rotor assembly, tail, top. There they are. Pretty cool. And we will do that later. But for most of the lesson, make sure that we are sticking with the this alembic paths format. And there we go.